The Climate Initiative Manager at Solutions Journalism Network, and I'm just delighted that everyone is here. Thank you so much for coming. In case you have not heard of SJN before and you're new to us, we're a nonprofit that works on teaching journalists how to do solutions journalism. To us, this is telling the other half of the story. You can't just talk about problems if you're not going to also talk about solutions. And it's creating accountability for those in power, because plenty of companies and governments benefit from problems persisting. And then it's producing necessary insights for society to thrive, news that people can truly use. So today we have an amazing panel lined up, and it will be moderated by the very capable Aman Ahzar.
Thanks for that introduction, Cheryl. We're joined by Simone Stewart, Industrial Policy Specialist for Climate and Energy Policy at the National Wildlife Foundation. And then we have Rachel Licker. She's Principal Climate Scientist for the Union of Concerned Scientists. And Nicholas Kusnetz, he's a reporter and a colleague of mine at Inside Climate News. So welcome to you all.
So when we say carbon dioxide removal, we're talking about removing CO2, a greenhouse gas, from the ambient air to lessen the amount of legacy emissions that have built up and been cycling through our carbon cycle since the Industrial Revolution. We have overwhelmed our natural CO2 sinks like forests and our ocean. And so there is a continual buildup of CO2 in the atmosphere because these natural sinks are no longer able to process at the rate that they used to. There's various strategies that exist. I think a lot of us frequently hear about the technological strategies like direct air capture, but there are also natural climate solutions that exist that fall under CDR, like enhanced weathering and mineralization. Ocean CDR is also kind of an interface between nature and technology as well. And so this is separate from CCS or CCUS, which is carbon capture, utilization, and storage, which is typically talking about a point source, whether it's an energy source or an industrial facility, to capture the actual CO2 at the source before it is emitted into the atmosphere.
When you talk to different people in the space, they're not all talking about the same thing. So there's what Simone was just saying, this forward-looking kind of true removal that's meant to kind of draw down this excess amount of carbon dioxide. But people in the course of my reporting last year, people in the energy department, certainly people in corporations, are viewing it often differently as basically a way to offset so-called hard to abate sectors, right? And that's where it starts to get really fuzzy. And I think for reporters, where it's important to look at what are people talking about this CDR actually achieving.
Is CDR or carbon dioxide removal part of emissions reductions? Is it like a mitigation pathway? Where does it really tie in, if you could bring some clarity to that?
I look at mitigation as a way to avoid emissions. And so that's where carbon capture would really fall more under that umbrella. Is this would otherwise be emitted if we weren't using this strategy. And so CDR for me really falls under a separate bucket of kind of more future-facing tactics. The science has said that even if we change our behavior, even if we aren't emitting as many gigatons of CO2 annually as we currently are, there's still this overwhelmed system that we have to deal with. And so really the conversation really has to be a both and conversation. You really have to be talking about decarbonizing and mitigation strategies and tactics while also thinking about the science, research, and deployment of the CDR technologies.
There's a theoretical way of thinking of CDR in terms of the modeling and what we're saying could be possible potentially. But then there's, of course, just the practical limitations with respect to, getting these technologies that are, currently happening perhaps in a laboratory or, at a smaller scale functioning at a larger scale. Then, of course, when we're talking about where are these things going to get developed, if they're going to involve heavy infrastructure, are they going to be developed in communities that have already borne the brunt of the climate crisis, and in addition to other environmental hazards?
What do we look for in terms of understanding, what is real from fiction, and then what is within real, how to scrutinize that?
When I get a new company comes to me and says, oh, we would love to talk with NWF about, kind of where our priorities are. I think about, who runs the company? What are their ties, if any, to the fossil fuel sector? I really look for companies that have good social standing, that talk about environmental justice principles as a part of how they run their company.
Where is the funding coming from? Who's the funding source? And kind of backing out of that a little bit, you realize how unclear it can become, because it could be through these sort of pre-purchases of carbon credits and who is making those pre-purchases and who decides who gets those credits potentially, and then looking into the regulations that are surrounding the project, thinking about the governance and also the plans for engaging any communities where infrastructure could get built.
There are people in like the academic and advocacy realm who would like to see CDR funding removed from the private and market driven realm and instead be driven by public money and like almost as a utility. We sort of decide as a social good, this is something we need to remove from the air. And that removes some of the issues that we've been talking about with markets. But of course, as you say, it's like what we have are tax, at least in this country, are tax incentives. So when you have potentially billions in tax incentives funding it, I think it's the same set of bringing the same set of questions, but just for a kind of a public accountability angle.
There is kind of a domestic case for climate justice, and there's a global case using CDR. And I think because we're looking at removals, there's an opportunity for this to remedy some of the harm that the global north has done and its industrialization and the emissions that it's produced, to kind of take responsibility back for the emissions that it's created as the global south continues to develop. I think that in the name of the climate crisis, we do a lot. And so it's one of the kind of common threads we hear is, well, this is for people, so people should support this. But I think it's really important for us to ask, but for whom? Who's going to benefit the most from this, the deployment of this technology, and how can we make sure that more people are benefiting from it, especially those that are disenfranchised? And I really encourage companies and thought leaders around this to really think outside of the box of the traditional capitalist business structure that we're very much used to, that we see even kind of starting up with, the early stage companies, to think about how they can use their company to really benefit those communities that are really truly experiencing the climate crisis on the front lines.
Thank you very much to all of you for bringing these excellent insights to the session today. Let me leave you with Cheryl from SJN. Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for your wisdom and insights. It was really, really helpful. Thank you.